Hey, welcome everyone back to another episode of Energy Unleashed podcast with Suzanne and Kim. Hello, lady.
Hello. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize we're kind of dark cleavage like shirts
Well,
today. Look at
that's that.
that.
Cleavage like shirts. Well, now that everyone is clicked off.
And if you're on audio, too bad.
Yeah, wow. All right, I'm going to tip my camera up. All right, so if you haven't heard us before, you're probably wondering what the heck we do. We are going to talk about some of my client sessions. Lately, Kim, have been having some actually really consistent I don't want to say complaints. It's not that. People are frustrated. Let's say it that way. People are
Okay.
so incredibly frustrated in my office lately. And these are people that actually have been doing some really good spiritual work for quite some time. And I know you and I touch base on this periodically as well, just as people that do light work. And I think this is something I want to bring forward so that people don't feel bad about themselves if they're doing it. It is exhaustion. The level of exhaustion is profound that I'm finding in people that they are just so freaking tired of doing the ascension process, doing spiritual work, walking the journey, trying to figure things out. Just really, really feeling sometimes like I just don't give a crap anymore. I just want to throw in the towel. I had a client just recently even say I was going under for an anesthesia on a surgery and just thought, God, I could just go and it would be fine. Not that it was feeling that, suicidal by any means, but just the exhaustion level of just giving in,
Yeah.
surrendering. And I think that that's something really interesting to talk about because it's really quite profound right now, right?
I actually talked to you about this a little bit not that long ago, where
Yeah.
like, what does this all mean? Like heading down this path and making a commitment and then on the other side of it, your everyday 3D life can be pretty great. And like, is it worth it? Like I just was in kind of that place too because it
Yep.
just felt like stagnant for me, I think. And I didn't feel like things were moving forward like I would like them to be, I
I
guess.
think I think we also discuss periodically, as do I with clients, that sometimes it just feels really easier to just be the ignorant, and I'm not making a judgment on that. Ignorant to the energy is what I mean. Not that the person is ignorant per se, but ignorant to the ascension process, is ignorant to the concept of what source is and how tricked we are, ignorant to the rabbit holes, ignorant to all of that stuff. Sometimes it just seems so easy to just not give a shit.
Mhm.
And it seems so hard to keep caring and holding extra energy in every way, shape, and form, even physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, holding on like almost with your fingernails to just going, okay, where's my faith today? What am I doing with this? Why am I continuing this journey? And I have seen so many people struggling with what the hell does this all for? What is this for? And I think our faith, and I don't mean dogmatic faith of, like this is what I'm supposed to think or believe. A true faith in your spiritual journey can be exhausting.
Mhm.
It's just the word is even exhausting. The
Yeah.
feeling when it comes out of my mouth just takes all the air out of your chest. It's like,
Right.
it's just as really tough. And then being a practitioner is very difficult because then, of course, I'm working with my clients saying, yeah, but have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? And so, of course, then I am responsible to walk my own talk. What have you done, Suzanne, to go back and fill up your energy tank? What have you done? What have you done? But I really think people are having a hard time with the suffering and the pain.
Mhm.
And I was really thinking about this the other day because we're collapsing. I've talked quite extensively, especially with the Vibe Tribe group on this, because I teach pretty heavy stuff on Vibe Tribe webcasts.
Mhm.
And if you're interested, go on my website and find that link and join if you choose, because it teaches a level that we don't share as much here. But I taught how we're collapsing and expanding at the same time, meaning we're collapsing all the elements of who and what we are, our fractals, all of the different elements of who and what a Kim is or a Suzanne is in this human form, so that we can expand into who we are in our higher self form. Well, when we're doing that, we're doing so much work and we don't even realize the energy work that we're doing to expand, collapse, expand, collapse, expand, collapse. And we're running through narratives, we're running through lifetimes, we're running through visuals, movies. I mean, you name it, it's in the Akash, in our Akash, in the collective Akash, in the Akash. It's it's going through so much energy transitions and transmutations and it's it's wearing our bodies down. And I don't know, I don't know if Source really knew maybe the practice run, maybe we are the practice run. Maybe the Source is up there going, oh crap, I didn't know this was going to happen to these poor bodies because I don't know if the human bodies are really designed to get hit this much, right?
Well, because when you say get hit this much, like I don't know if everybody
Ugh,
would
just
understand that, but yeah,
yeah.
from the sunburst, the change in, the Schumann resonance and, all of that, it totally affects the vibration of our body.
And cell memory release. I mean, cell memory release, when you're doing this clearing and cleaning up your own Akashic and your physical form, it is like tidal wave after tidal wave after tidal wave. And the more work that you do, obviously, the more so-called clear or cleaner you're going to get, but it's harder and harder and harder because this stuff is embedded into our cells. It's in our fascia, it's in our bones, it's in our muscles, and it doesn't feel good. And my client yesterday is just like, this is effing crap. I'm sick of it. I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm like, and then she's like, not that I want to leave the planet though. I really like it here. And I mean, it was so true though. I mean, you're looking outside. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining. The birds are out. Oh my God, my grandkids over. Isn't this a great life? And then it's like, this sucks. So I just want people to know that this is a bit insane right now, even for the so-called normal person. Not that anybody's normal anymore, much less the person that is really struggling to stay on task with their ascension process.
Yeah. So when you say ascension process, are your clients struggling with, because I know what I'm struggling with, but are they struggling with keeping like good habits around maybe meditating or their personal space, going out in nature, that kind of
I
stuff? Is it-
I think that's part of it. I think that's all of it. I also think that they're really struggling with the concept of how come this 3D life has to suck? How come it has to be pain? How come I have to lose people? I had a client this week just devastated because she's getting to the end of life with her cat that she's had for almost 20 years. And her
Mm,
cat is not just a cat for her, it's her child.
mhm,
And the depth of the pain that was coming out, and the cat's not even gone yet. And, the pain and why am I having this suffering and why am I feeling this depth of suffering? And another one who had lost a parent and another one who had lost a really dear friend recently. It's like, it's just this, and it's not just about loss of a body or a human or an animal. It's the loss of narratives. It's the loss of who I thought I was. I have people breaking up with relationships that are, never thought they'd be in this place. Loss of the job of I got shoved into retirement and I don't even know who I am. I mean, it just is non-stop right now. The level of suffering. And I know when I get back into my practitioner head, I get back into my balanced Suzanne head even. I get it. It's part of the process. The chaos is the growth. I understand the deconstruction of everything is the pain that we learn through. I get it, but it's so difficult. And I just want to share this because don't think that people that do this, even for a living all the time, and the people that are spewing out on Facebooks or Instagrams or YouTube, things saying how great it is to be in love and light. It sucks. It's hard. It's not easy. And I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're the weirdo or they're not doing a good job when they're hitting these places.
mhm.
And I'm not even talking, by the way, about a dark night of the soul where it hits you in every corner of your life. I'm just talking about navigating a damn week, right?
It's true. I mean, I listening to you, I feel like even in my own circle of family and friends, people are really unhappy with like their job right
Yeah,
now. It feels very unsettling. They don't know if they're going to have their job for a while. It's this readjustment period, that's going on that just, and not only it's energetic, but it's also political, it's
yes,
financial, it's all of the things, right?
yes,
And so that kind of angst starts to build into something else.
yes.
Like it just
It's
snowballs.
overwhelmed. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's overwhelmed. And then again, when I get balanced and I pull back into practitioner head, I say things like, which I truly believe, because I typically am very careful about what I say. the chaos in the political realm is part of the divine intervention for us to go deeper in the spiritual. It's part of the process, and I get it. But when you watch that political madness, upheaval in people's heart spaces and their fear
Mhm.
of, how can I survive? How can I live? How can I raise my kids? What do I do? I don't have a job. I don't have any money. I don't have, it's just heartbreaking. And this is when the suffering kicks in. And this is when the pain kicks in. And then I go back up and then I get pissy and I get mad too, like anybody else. And I scream to guidance. Well, why the hell does everything have to be so sucky? I mean, why, if God and source is love, why can't this go easier? Why can't we just make this transition easier?
Mhm.
Well, we can, but we don't believe we can. And that's part of it.
Talk about that because I think that is so inspirational to go back to the basics of
Yep. It's
what you
even
create.
like I was doing really deep, and I have been putting myself through the mill on purpose to
Mhm.
get myself into some really dark places and spaces in my human form and in my psyche too, to clean, 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 spring cleaning extraordinaire. And it's not fun. And when you get into those, it's like I literally was home alone, and Chuck was up at the cabin. And I think I said this on the last one, maybe where I was screaming to guidance at like 4 in the morning because I was so pissed. I don't know if I told you that. I was so mad. I was just so mad. And I'm screaming, this shouldn't have to feel so shitty. This shouldn't have to feel so physically and emotionally hard. My grief that I was finding from things from I can't even tell you when was so palpable and huge that I was literally vomiting at a certain point, going, what the hell is that? I didn't even know that was in there. And astounded at how difficult it was. And then I'm like, well, this should be easier. You and I'm screaming, should be able to just make this easier. Why can't I? Why do I have to peel every goddamn onion layer back one at a time? Why can't it just go as one onion and make it easier? And then I hear, because you don't believe you can do that. And I'm like, God, and I'm like, okay, and I do in some instances believe I can do that because I do it with clients. I can literally have clients have phenomenal, unbelievable changes in one session that stay with them forever. So do I believe it more for my clients than I believe it for myself? Maybe. But are there times that I have completely done things for myself? Yes. So when we're doing these things, it's extremely important to realize half of this pain and suffering is to remember who and what we truly are and how grand and great and infinite we are.
Mhm.
This is part of the process of going, I actually can do that. I was even telling somebody this week, I know within my knowing that I know how to walk through a wall, or I can move something with my mind, or I can levitate my body. I know that somewhere in my body, but it's so frustrating being a human with amnesia coming down here
Mhm.
because we don't remember what we know. And so how can we possibly think that we're so gifted and talented that we can release all of our pain in one fell swoop if I can't remember what I know all day long, kind of a thing. So these
Mhm.
are churning around in us right now, and it's getting more and more and more difficult because we're getting more and more open to remembering what we do know.
Mhm.
There will be a day when the human remembers that they can levitate or walk through a wall. It isn't maybe today in Suzanne's healing room in the basement, but it will
Oh,
happen.
come on, try it. I want to see
Yeah,
it.
wait. Clunk.
Hulk.
So, I think this is a guinea pig phase that we're in a lot of times, and I don't necessarily like being a guinea pig.
So there's a couple things. One, I think it's very unsettling when you start to open up, not to things necessarily as grand as walking through walls and moving
Hmm.
items, but just even knowing more about your higher self
Hmm.
and maybe some of your wisdom or skills that start to become, it's very unsettling and it can be
Yeah.
scary, right? So that's another level of, working through that. And like you said, working through the onion, it's not just once, it's like multiple times for things in release
Yes.
and letting things go. And I think that's a frustration for me is like, wait, I thought I already did this. Like,
Yes.
seriously, now this is coming up again. I'm regurgitating this again. Why am I not totally letting go of it? You know,
And
um,
And on the other hand, now to play devil's advocate on the other side and unleash that part of it, spirit also does know what it's doing because if it 100% opened us up, we would self-combust because we would be back to light. It does, we're
yeah.
a holographic version of our thoughts and our emotions and our actions, right? I mean, this is hard enough to get our head around anyway. And if I am all of a sudden my Pandora's box opens and everything is all the illusions are taken away and everything is back. What is that then? I
Yeah,
mean, it's like, right?
right.
So there's reasons that even spirit takes us through baby steps and or onion layers, but it still doesn't take away the frustration of screaming, why can't I? Yeah.
So
Right.
now go into more detail though, because when you say we have the ability, like, it's part of like how you manifest and what your vibration is and those kinds of things, right? What is that? Because
The ability of
so
what,
I'm
walking through a
listening.
wall?
No,
Oh,
even that life, when you said, why is it so hard?
yeah.
Why do I have to keep going through this? When they say you are capable of doing this, what
Yeah.
is this? What you're
Well,
talking
I think we are capable of doing anything, period,
about?
because we're the creators of this existence. Each one of us is a co-creator in our own paradigm and perception. That's what this is. And it's so difficult for us to get that. And
Mhm.
again, this is my frustration. I don't want to necessarily sometimes even think that I start to get that because I just want to be the normal person that just goes goes to the
I
grocery
just
store
want to
and
go to
comes home,
happy
eats a
hour,
big
enjoy the
fat steak and
sunshine.
right? And goes to bed and doesn't give a crap, you know? But do I? No, of course I don't, or else I would be doing that.
Yeah.
So it's first of all, be honest with yourself on what it is that you even want to do, what you want to know, what you want to remember, and how you want to evolve. And we do know how to evolve, and yet we don't because we haven't done this before. We haven't done this ascension process before in a human form. So many of us are guinea pigs. So oftentimes we're sitting there telling guidance, help me do this. And I even hear guidance say, we're not sure how to do that quite yet. And it's like, well,
Oh,
what the hell does that mean? You're supposed to know everything. You're so-called God source. You're my higher self. And
yeah.
then it's like, yeah, but, this is an evolution of something that we're in the midst of creating. And it's crazy to sit there and still have that hero
Okay.
program going,
So
even with myself,
we're
right?
like research and development, trial and error. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, isn't it all? I mean, isn't that what these simulations of sorts are about? Isn't that what this thing is? It's universal timelines, doing it again and again in a different way and tweaking it. I mean, we do it every day. We do that every single day of our lives. But if we really remembered absolutely everything we know right away, we couldn't, I believe, handle it. And
No,
if
we'd
we
end up in the
cleared
psych ward for
everything,
sure. Like, don't you think we would just end up in like
yeah,
a
it
straight jacket and not
in
knowing
poof land, yeah. I mean, or
whatever?
we wouldn't be here, period, right? Which
True.
is, I guess, okay too. But I don't think that's the end goal when you're trying to figure this out, still embodied. But the pain and the suffering still has lessons as well, even though they suck. And there are elements to traversing that and releasing that layer after layer after layer that help take the steps to where you want to remember things. So they work together. But remember, Source doesn't see pain and suffering as pain and suffering. Source just sees it as an experience. The
Mm.
goal for us is to understand the pain and suffering is an experience, not this is so horrible in my life is crap.
Well, then it's important to give yourself like give yourself that space to be okay with whatever that is, that it's not a failure, that it's
Yep,
something that you're
right.
learning from and you take it with you. So to be kinder to yourself and not be so hard on whatever that experience is or how you handle it.
And this all goes back to our programming as an individual civilization, a timeline, this whole Earth journey, et cetera, et cetera. All is about control and victimized programming, right? I mean, if I'm still victimized because I lost my partner, and I can't go on with life because I don't have my wife or my husband or, my kid or my whatever, or my job. If I'm that victimized, you better be looking at your controller program too. I mean, this is the yin and the yang of the pain and the suffering. The lesson is on the other side of that same coin.
Mhm.
And so when we are still just sitting in the crap and garbage of our so-called feeling victimized in our soul contract, it is hard when we say, I don't believe I picked this. I don't believe I picked this life. I would never, and if I did, I want it back. I want an exchange. I want a do-over, That's a really human reaction. It really
Yeah.
is. And I think I wanted to make this video to give people the opportunity to be pissed and be angry and have that human reaction, but then find neutral again step back again and really look at what is the truth, because that emotion right at that moment maybe is just sheer exhaustion and frustration,
Mhm.
right? And to
Right.
get that balance again of all of it, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical all together, is not so easy. And then that's when it's time for us to have self-responsibility, go do our own work. I mean, I told you I got yelled at by my guides the other day because we're not doing enough work.
Well,
Go.
and I think that comes and goes, ebbs and flows, because it felt like even the work you were doing wasn't like didn't change much. Like there wasn't a much like for inside of me, my with my higher self, it just didn't feel like there was,
Yeah,
anything going on. So then you kind of, I think humanly,
yeah.
when something isn't, when we don't see a response or results, it's like, huh, whatever, I'll move on to the next thing.
Well, it's like supplements, I was telling the client this week. It's like supplements. I hate freaking supplements. Oh, take this because it's going to do this. Nothing ever works in Suzanne's body the way it's supposed to, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that goes. And I'll try it for like 3 weeks or whatever, nothing. I'll try that. Okay, add this in or change that, nothing, nothing. And so again, you get really frustrated and you just want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just not care anymore. Or same thing, I'm gonna, go walking, but my butt still hurts 3 days later or 3 weeks later, and I haven't lost any weight and I don't care anymore. We get these we get these really human reactions, and it's really important to honor the fact that we are a human,
Hmm.
okay?
It's
And
hard.
that these bodies are really doing the best that they possibly can to stay up to this process. I mean, goodness sakes, these are living, breathing organisms that we're walking around in and that are going, what is happening? As much
Yeah.
as our psyche is, right? So it's a it's a tough time. It's a really tough time. And this is going to always be about finding the balance,
Hmm.
because we're not ever going to have a this or a that. It's going to be chaos for a really long time in
Yeah.
so many different ways because there's so many things that are happening.
And by the way, we've been asking for visibility into all of this
Ugh,
for a long time. A lot of people have been,
makes me giggle that people want
you know,
disclosure and I want to see behind the curtain. Well,
and then it
you
comes out and
see.
they're like, no, put it back, put it back.
And again, this is why
Can't be
spirit
true.
doesn't give you 100% visibility and disclosure at one time either,
Yeah.
because people would be like, if you started to really, dismantle some of this dogmatic stuff, people would be jumping off buildings going, wait a minute, everything I grew up with. I mean, I even do that in my own work when I'm finding really cell memories of things going, wait, that's from when I was 6. What?
Yeah.
I went for 60 years of thinking that, those kinds of things are astounding for your brain to get around. So these baby steps, they feel like baby steps, are actually pretty giant steps in
And
terms
which
of
again
growth.
goes back to why we're exhausted and why we're frustrated, because it's an impact to everything, your all of your energy, your heart, so you do the mental, emotional, physical, all of it. It's a
And everything is happening at once because it has to. And this is another thing that I draw for people all the time and I write about in my books is sandboxes. We have sandboxes for our health, our family, our job, our relationships, whatever. The sand is all the same. The chaos is still the same in every single solitary sandbox. I mean, the chaos of change and the chaos of, light quotient changing and the chaos of vibration and frequency changing is going to affect everything at the same time.
Mhm.
Everything. And so the overwhelm is astounding when you allow yourself to just go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, because then when I see this sandbox and this sandbox, I think I can't keep up. There isn't enough of me. I'm losing my mind. Instead of just thinking, well, it's all the same sand.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's always a good example of what this looks
Yeah.
like for us. Yeah.
All the same sand. Just tweak it with the toy that you're playing with for the moment. But man, being a human is not easy. And I can see when people get really frustrated and they are angry that they feel like they got plunked down here.
Mm.
And, I feel like you sit there and tell me that my soul chose this, and I get that in my head, but man, my body just doesn't want to agree with that right now. Or, my heart doesn't care anymore. All of those things. Again, let yourself be human and frustrated and angry and screaming like I was at 4 in the morning to the ethers. And I was comfortable enough screaming, like I said, because, that I mean, I don't even think Chuck would care if I was screaming. I don't think he would notice that. But I thought, okay, my windows are open and the neighbors are going to think that there's like, a
A murder happening and then
domestic assault going on because I'm screaming, yeah, where are you? I need you.
yeah.
I think it's important for us to get that stuff out of us as a physical form so that it isn't all pent up inside and angry either. So,
Well, and this is an important time because I have felt like I haven't been as close to some of my peers in this arena as much. And it's really an important time to be there
yeah,
with your peers who understand what you're going through because that's another way of letting it out is to talk through it. Like, wow,
yep,
I am really struggling with this right now. And you find others are too,
yeah.
and you can relate to that and you can actually encourage each other to keep going.
And the
Um,
beauty of being a practitioner is I see it all day, every day when I'm working, and it is my responsibility to assist them and show them the other side of the coin and how they can move through it. And then when I hear myself say things, it's like, okay, there,
yeah.
you know,
It
there's a
might,
big responsibility of walking your own talk, and that is,
yeah.
I think that's one of the things I value about my so-called job, even though I don't feel like it's a job. But I think that that keeps a lot of us on task for that. But my point in bringing this up is you're not alone if you're struggling. You're not alone if you're overwhelmed. You're not alone if you feel like this just sucks and you maybe want to change your mind and go to a different planet and a different timeline. These are really unsure times, and it's a personal responsibility. That validation is not going to come from outside of you in any way, shape, or form. That settling of how do I feel safe and worth and enough is not going to come from, hopefully a podcast like this can at least give you the understanding that you're not alone, but the work to find the balance comes from within. And
Mhm.
that's really hard.
That's really hard, gosh. I mean, I used to look for that validation all the time,
Yep.
and it's such it was a long transformation for me to get past that, and especially the ego
Mhm.
piece of it. So,
And I think what's so interesting is the more work I do, the more messy I feel. And I want to encourage people to be okay with that because when we are in the illusion, when we are in the 3D and we are in that ego stance, the presentation of who and what our story is, our narrative is, et cetera, is oftentimes very disingenuous
mhm,
because that's how we get fed in the ego form. When one really starts to understand how deep this stuff goes, it becomes extremely messy. And the ability to be vulnerable changes.
mhm,
And it's scary, and people find themselves crying a lot more or literally falling to pieces a lot more and feeling, so seen and terrified and on and on. So my suggestion in that regard, if you choose to take it, is really look at the feels that you're going through and own them with care and
mhm,
compassion to yourself. It's almost like your adult self helping the inner child, but it's really you are the child right now. It becomes very, very, very infantile because these are primal things we're releasing. These are really deep lifetimes and lifetimes and timelines and dimensional, histories that we're letting go of in other spaces and places that we're not even aware of. So this can feel extremely broken. And it's important that we do not consider ourselves broken, but the journey can feel breaking, right? That's
oh
different.
my gosh, I agree with you on all of that because it's so easy to go down the path of blaming. You look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and it's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You could have done better yesterday.
Yep.
And you didn't. And you slept in too late this morning, or you didn't do whatever that you said you would do. And
Yep.
it's really easy to do that thought process and track and not the self-love.
Yep. And then that turns into victimization. And then we flip back into fake control. And then we're doing it all over again. So these are going to be difficult journeys. And I think sharing, like you said, is important. And, please maybe do some commenting on the bottom of this one if this feels like who you are and what you're dealing with, because others need to know that they're not alone in these journeys. And this is about quiet time for people, which people don't like. I don't want to do
No,
quiet.
no,
No.
especially when you're like in this place of it's hard to balance between the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. That's what I'm finding to
Yes.
be really hard because I go into one and the other suffer somehow. Like it's trying to figure out how to work it across all of them in a
Yeah.
way that is more balanced.
Yeah.
Because once you focus in on one, the rest just fall to the side. And then
Well, and
you
again,
try to
in
balance.
Vibe Tribe just this last week, we talked about the universal law of one. When you're going through those templates, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual as separate, you're still in that separation of source mentality. And
Mhm.
it's understanding that there is not even a separation within your own auric fields, much less your organs, much less anything. It's all one. And that's hard. That's really hard
Mhm.
to do that. So that's why the work of energy, moving the energy fields together in synergy and, finding the balance between male and female and the sacred marriage of yourself. And, this is all inner work to get to the outer. And the outer goes in and the in goes out and back and forth. And ugh, it's exhausting.
Again, what did you say? Exhaustion and frustration.
Yep.
That's
So there's your weather forecast for the next 40 years. No, but I mean, and I will leave it on I think a much nicer note in terms of the greatest thing about being on this planet is that there is such incredible beauty, no matter how chaotic it is. You literally yesterday when I was in between clients, just boom, boom, boom. My Mondays and Wednesdays are boom, 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 boom. I barely breathe in between. I ran outside and just stared at the sun and sat on the steps and felt the warmth and looked at the trees and felt the wind for all of like 10 minutes. And that's a complete reset. Um, we are so blessed to have such infinite energy of love right in front of our face every day, all day.
Mhm.
And it can come from something as simple as watching a bird on the tree. And if we don't capture those moments, that's shame on us. It's there for the taking and it's free. And it is actually even more than that. It's your responsibility as part of this planetary system to have that exchange and reciprocal energy exchange of love. And, we don't think like that. So don't think that this is all doom and gloom. The whole point is that we're saving a planet and a species and our souls all at the same time. This is pretty profound.
Ugh. That's why it's so much work.
Yeah. And you signed up for it, right?
I
So.
know that soul contract.
And if you don't know what that is, go find our YouTube on that one because that's a
Yeah.
toughie. Okay, well, on behalf of Kim and I know this is a big one, and hopefully that didn't bring you down as much as it gives you some options and it gives you some ease and grace to know that you're not alone in this journey. So please consider subscribing, share this with your friends because there's a lot of people struggling with suffering right now. Give the link out, hit the share button, leave a comment, do a like button, whatever you choose to share the message. We certainly appreciate it. So on behalf of both of us, cosmic hugs.
Goodbye.